Hi, I'm Crystal from TradeGecko. Thanks for joining our webinar on growth hacking your e-commerce business. If you have questions during the presentation, please submit them through GoToWebinar in the questions section, and we'll answer them during the session at the end. Now handing it over to Yi-wei, Head of Growth at TradeGecko.
Thank you, Crystal. Hey, everyone. Good afternoon. So as Crystal mentioned, my name is Yi-wei. I'm the head of growth here at TradeGecko. And today we'll be talking a bit about growth hacking for e-commerce. I know for a lot of people, this is a very new concept, what growth hacking is all about. But not to worry, we'll be going through sort of the foundations of what growth hacking is about, how you can be experimental, and also how some tactics that we can go through. So once again, the three things we'll be talking about. Growth hacking 101. What is growth hacking? Experimentation, how as a startup or as an e-commerce company, you should focus on the small wins and how they lead to bigger wins. And finally, talking a bit about growth hacking tactics and what are some ideas out there that you can actually test out for your e-commerce store. So let's start with the basics. What is growth hacking? It's a term that's been thrown around a lot. It's been overused. It's been misrepresented over the last couple of years. But very basically speaking, growth hacking is about a rapid experimentation process with the goal of expansion and growth of your business, whatever that goal may be. So for a lot of e-commerce companies, your goal might be to grow your revenue for your e-commerce business, and you want to continue growing that over a period of time. If you take a look at some of the successful e-commerce companies out there or businesses out there, what you realize is that your massive hockey stick curve, where your revenue continuously increases month over month over month, doesn't come together with one massive win. It usually isn't just one thing that you did that contributed to that growth. In fact, for most companies, it's the incremental gains over long periods of time sort of folded over each other that have led them to a high velocity curve and growth over a period of time. That's what growth hacking is about. Your goal when you're looking at growth hacking is to have a repeatable process that can continuously drive growth. You're not looking for the one-off win that you can have in a week. You're looking for a consistent push that you can come up with week after week after week, and a process that lets you understand what's working, what's not, and eventually lead you to that hockey stick growth curve. Now, here's a word of caution. I know a lot of times, especially when you're just starting out, it's very tempting to just try a bunch of stuff, which is great. But do remember one thing. What works for one company might not work for you. The reality is that they may be operating in a different region. They might be selling a product that's at a different price point. They might be selling products to customers that have different preferences and different purchasing behaviors. So you have to be very cautious of how growth hacking applies to your business and what are some things that your customers care about. What works for someone else may not work for you. So when we think about growth hacking and a hypothesis-driven approach, what exactly does that look like? And what does that actually mean? Boiling it down, it means thinking of your work as a series of small, continuous experiments to drive towards bottom-line growth. You want to continue iterating and iterating and iterating until you've hit your desired outcome. And in this case, iterating means ditching experiments that don't work out and doubling down on experiments that do. And the one final learning here is that most of your experiments will not work. The reality is, with everything that you ship, sometimes it's only about a quarter of the things that actually work out. And that's all right, because if you move quickly and you iterate quickly, you can take those learnings and ship a new version of it out as quickly as possible. And that's how you can pivot your growth approach and your organization. Now, if we're talking about a hypothesis-driven approach, what does a hypothesis even look like? For some of you guys the last time you heard of the term hypothesis or a scientific method was probably high school or middle school. Bringing that back, if you remember how things work out, it's you usually have some sort of independent variable that you're trying to change, and you're trying to see how it affects a dependent variable. And bringing that concept back to growth hacking, it's very similar. A good hypothesis looks like this. We believe that doing X being your independent variable, will cause Y, and Y being your dependent variable. And we know that we have succeeded when metric A is achieved within B time. A couple of key elements here. You can see that an experiment like this, it's a good hypothesis because it's falsifiable. You know that if you do X and it doesn't cause Y, it is falsified. So you know that by changing the call to action from red to green, if that doesn't actually change and improve your conversion rate, you can falsify that hypothesis. And it's important that you can falsify it so that you know whether or not to roll this out to everybody or whether this experiment has failed and you should move on to something else. A good hypothesis also has known assumptions. In the example that I showcased, where you can change the call to action color from green to red, your assumption might be that green oftentimes means go to a lot of people. And because green has that relationship with the action of go, we believe that people will be more likely to convert. If that's your assumption and doing that, changing that, didn't cause an uplift in, for example, your revenue or sales, then you can falsify that hypothesis and you can also dig into your assumptions to learn about why things didn't work out. Perhaps the assumption that you had was wrong. Perhaps you should come up with a new assumption instead as you move on to the next experiment. A good hypothesis also impacts your bottom line. It's really tempting, especially when you just start growth hacking, just try a bunch of stuff. It's good to try a bunch of stuff, but when it has no good way of impacting your bottom line, you might realize that an experiment might be highly successful, but it's not particularly impactful. So a good hypothesis always looks at how it impacts a company's bottom line. And finally, you should, when you come up with an experiment or a hypothesis, come up with clear next steps. So, as an example, if you decide to change the button from red to green for 3 of your pages, if that is successful, you might roll it out to 50 of your product pages as a next step. So, be very clear about what happens if your experiment succeeds and what happens if your experiment fails. This gives you a very clear roadmap of what to do next. And here are some examples of hypotheses. The first one here is, we believe that by giving 10% a 10% off code for signing up for our digest, we will increase our reach to new customers. We know that we have succeeded when we have gained 250 emails within 2 weeks. So you can see what the independent variable here is, the dependent variable, and what the net impact you want to achieve within a certain time period. A second one here is, we believe that by using scarcity as a tactic, for example, 5 items left on the product page, we will drive urgency and increase the conversion rate for our summer line. We know that we have succeeded when our conversion rate increases from 4.5% to 6% within 1 month. Once again, another example of how you can put together a hypothesis. Now you have a bunch of these experiments and a bunch of these hypotheses. How do you get organized? At TradeGecko, we recommend that a lot of people use a very lightweight tool called Trello, where you can clearly organize your ideas in, for example, 4 columns. A bunch of growth ideas on the left column, developing meaning it's being worked on and created. Testing is where something is in flight and you are waiting to see what results come up, and concluded are experiments that are finished. In Trello, you can open these up, you can throw in screenshots, you can put in your hypotheses, you can have discussions with people on your team. It's a great way to keep your experiments nice and tidy. It's also a great way to reprioritize things as you grow and learn as an organization. Now, the question is, how do you pick which idea to go with? You have 5 different ideas that you want to start with. You obviously don't have the resources to do all 5 at once. Where do you start? One methodology that's commonplace in the growth world is the ICE method, and that measures the impact, confidence, and ease of different experiments. The impact score goes from 1 to 10, and same with all the other scores. And the higher the impact number, the more impactful that is to your bottom line. An 8 here, for example, could be an experiment that, if actually works out, can significantly change your bottom line. A 1 is a good to have, but not particularly impactful. Confidence here is how confident you are that this experiment will work out. When you first start out in your growth hacking journey, you might realize that your confidence level for most experiments are pretty low, and that's okay. The whole idea here is that you continuously build confidence over time. And so a confidence score of 8 here means that perhaps you've tried a similar idea before, and you want to roll it out in a different way. And having done things before will give you that level of confidence that it may work a second time around. Ease here, for a higher number here, let's say an 8, it means that something is really easy to do. For those of you who, for example, are using WooCommerce or Shopify, you might realize that some experiments are easier to run if you use a Shopify add-on as an example. Those might be an 8 because of how easy it is to roll out. A 2 might be something that requires actual development effort, whether you're using your in-house engineers or actually hiring somebody. So when you add the impact, confidence, and ease score, it gives you a level score that tells you how impactful something could be to your organization. And you could You could sort of sort things by descending order and pick the idea that has the highest score and start with that and move your way down. That's one way to prioritize your ideas. So I wanted to also showcase the experimental mindset in a bit of a pictorial. The green point here is where you are today if you haven't started doing anything growth related. In the beginning, as you're coming up with different experiments, these are the little gray bubbles, you realize that what you want to maximize for is learning. So these are low cost experiments. Perhaps you don't have high certainty, or the impact of what you might do may not be super high, but that's all right. The key here is you want to learn as much as possible. You want to know that for your site, wow, changing the call to action actually does nothing, whereas having social proof in your product pages actually makes a lot of a difference. So the idea here is to kill experiments that don't work, early on. And for those that do, you double down on them and you continuously work and work and work on them and eventually fork them out to actually be part of your product as a whole. So later on in the stages, what you care about is execution. You're shipping things that you have high certainty about, perhaps higher impact about. And that is done by doubling down on experiments that do work out. So what's next? Moving on from what the growth hacking methodology is about, what I want to kickstart is a conversation about some ideas that you can have. And one caution I will list out again is that what I'm listing out here might work for some companies but may not work with others. So do look at how you can run some of these tests really quickly and easily and see if it moves the needle. If it doesn't, feel free to move on to something else that works better for your company. So what does the process look like, when you are thinking about starting to come up with growth hacking ideas or tactics? Here's a couple that we look at. You start with a qualitative overview, then move to the quantitative. You look at opportunities and identify gaps, and finally you generate and execute on ideas. And let's dig into those 4 steps one by one. You start with the qualitative, and that is the one piece of feedback that I think is highly, highly useful for a lot of e-commerce owners. It's really tempting to just start writing code or start changing your design of your site. But the most important thing that you need to do is really have a deep understanding of your customers. Whether it's existing customers or customers who have abandoned cart or customers who have just, left their email to subscribe to your blog or your newsletter, but actually have never made a purchase before, it's important that you talk to each different cohort to learn a little bit more about what they care about. In some cases, you want to learn about why did somebody abandon their cart. In other cases, you want to know, did you find what you were looking for? You want to know about things like, what is the one way that we can improve your experience? And finally, how likely are you to recommend us to a friend and why? By asking questions like that are relatively open-ended, you get an understanding of what customers are thinking about. Perhaps you find out that a customer is abandoning cart because they're concerned about the warranty policy for your product, or they're worried that they're not getting the best deal, or they have no urgency to actually make a purchasing decision. These are some things that you learn that can definitely be great ideas that you can test out in your hypotheses and your experiments. As an example, if someone's telling you that perhaps they don't trust that this is a good product, then what you might be able to ship out are, for example, reviews of the product or social proof of customers using the product as a way to bolster your customers' confidence. This is why starting with the qualitative is so important, because it paints a picture and an understanding for who your customers are and what they actually care about. So once you have the qualitative in order, then you jump into the quantitative. I know some of us here are more number savvy than others, but it's really important to be data-driven in a fast-growing, growth-oriented organization. And the reason for that is if you don't measure it, you don't know if you're improving or not. Here are some questions I often ask e-commerce owners. What are your main channels? Do people come in from organic search? Do people come in from referrals? Do people come in from paid ads that you have on Facebook or Google? Have an understanding of where people are coming in. Then dig into the conversion rate for each channel. Ask yourself, what is the basket size for each of these channels? Perhaps you find that people who are coming in from paid channels spend a ton more than people who come in organically. And finally, what is the lifetime value of each channel? So knowing for every customer that comes in from a particular channel, how often do they come back and how much do they actually buy? The reason why you want to know this is so that you can estimate impact of how movements of specific channels affect your bottom line. Also helps you realize where there are problems in your different channels. And let me show you some numbers here to show you how this works. The example here is you have an e-commerce store that is organic, that has a ton of people coming in organically and a ton of people coming in from referrals. You can see that in the referral section, it's smaller than the organic section. But guess what? The conversion rate for referrals are just substantially higher. Perhaps referrals include some sort of promotion code that sort of pushes people who are referred to make a purchasing decision as quickly as possible. You also realize here that the average basket size for people who are coming in through referrals are actually higher. So even though there are more people that are coming in through the organic channel, as you look at Google Analytics, what you realize is that your revenue actually predominantly comes in from referrals. And that's a very, very good thing to learn about. Perhaps you identify then that the one thing that you want to move is the conversion rate for your organic channel. And so this next chart here shows you what that quantifies to. So all things being equal, with the same number of visitors, the same basket size, if you, let's say, change your conversion rate to 5% to 10%, you can quantify that the difference here in your revenue is $125,000 over, let's say, a period of a month. So this gives you an understanding of impact, right? You know that even if you only move the conversion rate by 5%, that has a significant impact to your bottom line. So these are important questions to know and back up your experiments and hypotheses with actual hard numbers that come through. So here are a few ideas, once you have done your qualitative and quantitative homework. The first one here is called building an audience. And this is one that a lot of e-commerce companies use. It's also one that a lot of SaaS companies, software as a service companies use, which is the reality that people who come to your site may purchase for the first time and they may not come back. Or they might come to your site and sign up for your blog or your newsletter or like your post, but they may not actually buy anything from you. So building up a database of people who are in that cohort will help you reach out to get more feedback and also helps you with remarketing and marketing efforts. Here's how you can build up an audience. We've seen e-commerce stores offering things like a free ebook or free guide that people can download. And in exchange for a download, you ask people for their email address and build that up. You can also allow people to sign up for your blog and send out a monthly blog digest to get them back into your site. And finally, you could also give people a discount for adding themselves to a mailing list. This is a really great incentive to get people onto your list and remarket it to over a period of time. The second piece here is one that many of you probably have heard about, which is search engine optimization. The core concept here is that people search for products or solutions to their problems. They don't search for stores specifically. So it's really important for you to understand what people are searching for. There are great tools out there like Moz or SEMrush that let you throw in key terms. Let's say I'm selling UV glasses. I can throw that in there and see, which are the pages that rank really highly for these, some keyword suggestions, and what the volume for the different searches are. As you find out these keywords and group these keywords, you can actually modify your page descriptions, your headers of the page, your titles of the page to really orient yourself towards high-performing keywords that have high opportunity for disruption. Figure out which keywords are not doing well in your organization and which are, and continuously refine that. The thing about SEO is that it's a bit of a longer-term piece. You don't just do it once and call it a day. So do come back and revisit it every 2 to 3 months and clean up shop. Make sure that for those keywords that are not doing well, that you find different ways to optimize that or change up the keywords to things that perhaps are trending upwards. Third concept here is called bringing customers back. The idea is that you want to remind customers that you exist and that you can continue providing value to them. And here's some ideas. It might mean sending a blog update every month about different things that you can do with the product that you just bought, or some supplementary new releases that you have. Featured items is a similar concept where as you launch a new line, you might have a featured item with the discount that you send out. Customer stories are great. People love hearing about stories and how different products have changed different people's behaviors and lives. So do share stories from your different customers in an email or a blog so that customers can actually learn about how this product can change the way that they do things. And finally, supplementary products. If you've made a purchase of, let's say, a coffee machine, a very natural next question is, where do I buy beans or where do I buy a tamping mat? These are some great supplementary products that you can include and actually recommend to your customers, whether through partnerships or through your store, to get them back again and make a purchasing decision for a second time. The next concept here is what all e-commerce customers care about, all e-commerce owners care about, which is conversion optimization. And what better of an example than looking at something like Amazon and how they do it. So can you introduce elements of trust, scarcity, urgency, and a bargain to your page? And how do you optimize that? I want you guys to look at the screenshot that I included here and see how many elements they've thrown on this page. As an example, front and center, you can see the number of customer reviews and the overall review score for this 4-person tent. You can see that 1,641 people have reviewed it, 4.5 star on average. That gives you a confidence as a consumer that this is something that's tried and tested, that over 1,600 people have actually tried and vouched for. It says here that you also have 38% off. You can save $24, and you can get all of that if you buy something within 3 hours and 48 minutes. So this is an idea of a great bargain and also scarcity, right? And urgency. You know that it's ending really soon, and you have to jump on that. People love a bargain. People love the word free. You can see the word free used here twice. One for free shipping, and another for sign up for Prime. It says try fast and free shipping. Free is a great word to use if you want people to really feel like what they're having is a bargain. And in some Amazon pages, you can actually use scarcity, and you can see that they have things like, hey, there's 4 items left in stock. That's to push you to say, wow, if I don't buy it now, I might not have it tomorrow. So it pushes people to actually make a purchasing decision as soon as possible. So these are things that you can try for your e-commerce store. And the last one here, almost the last one here is referrals. And what it is that if you know that people are raving fans and you have a set of loyal customers, how do you leverage them to share your products to the masses? So an idea here is an e-commerce fashion company called Elle Claire, and they have an affiliate program here where you can very easily sign up to actually refer others to your product. And if you continuously refer others and they actually make a purchasing decision, you can actually get a discount or a promotion code for your next purchase. You can get people to also share it on social media and hopefully get a discount out of that as well. And finally, you can also leverage on influencers in the community to get people to guest blog about your product. Get your loyal customers to do that because they're your best representatives and they can really showcase how your product has changed their lives. And the one thing here, the next concept here is called landing page optimization, which is whether you're using a paid ad or finding ways to get people in, make sure that you have one key goal that you want people to drive towards. Don't just drop them to your central page, and ensure that you have one thing that people can do. As an example, if you're doing paid ads and you know that your image is about a specific product that you're pushing, don't drop people to a generic homepage onto your website where they have to click around to find that product which attracted them to the first place. Drop them to that specific product which you've marketed to them. The whole idea there is that they can very quickly make a decision to drop something into cart and buy, as opposed to having to navigate through webs and webs of navigation before they can get there, and may eventually drop off along the way. So the idea here is aligning all the calls to action to your page to the page's goal and constantly test out copy and images. For your different landing pages, try different wording, try different, including social proof or changing the size and copy of different buttons. And hopefully through those experiments, you can get to a landing page that performs well. And I'll leave it at that. Those are some ideas that you can tackle from a growth hacking perspective. And do try some of that. No, once again, that not everything will work for everyone. But if you move quickly and learn quickly, it's a great way for you to see what works and what doesn't for your company. I got a great question here coming in. How much time should I spend experimenting versus running my business? That's a great question. As a business owner, one thing that you care about is perhaps the core of your business, running and fulfilling orders, making sure customer service questions are answered to top of your game. Don't let that go. You want to make sure that your existing customers are happy. But as you're thinking about growth, I know a lot of you out there are thinking about how you can market your product better. If you're spending 20 or 30% of your time thinking about that, do take a growth hacking lens to that. And when you're thinking about that, spend that time, really focusing on learnings. And that's my advice for those of you who are thinking about how much time you should be spending on growth hacking. The next question here is examples of companies making good use of growth hacking to learn from. That's a great example. That's a great question. There are some actually great blogs that you can subscribe to. For example, Growth Hackers is a great one that you can actually Google at. And they're actually fantastic blogs that have showcase what companies have done successfully or not. And as an e-commerce owner, my recommendation for you is to actually scout out different blogs or different e-commerce stores and see what works for people and what doesn't. You can see how maybe some people have used specific add-ons to create, for example, get people to sign up for their mailing list when they're about to depart from the site. Little things like that can inspire you. So I encourage you to actually constantly be on the lookout and just click on a bunch of different e-commerce stores, and hopefully one of those can inspire you to actually start some of these experiments on your own. Another great question here is growth hacking just a marketing technique, or can this be applied to any other areas of our business? Yeah, I mean, a lot of the examples that I've showcased here shows growth hacking as almost a marketing technique, and that's at the heart of it, especially for e-commerce companies. But it's great to see how people have applied the growth hacking technique to every other part of their business as well. As an example, you can think about, well, do customers care about express shipping? Perhaps your hypothesis, if customers can get their products within 2 days or less compared to a week, they'll be more likely to convert. And one of your experiments could be, to provide that as an option and to actually work out a partnership with a shipping provider to make that happen. But you can see how that's not necessarily just a marketing technique, but actually a core offering that you can have. So my advice here for e-commerce owners is to really adopt the growth hacking mentality into your day-to-day job. So on the marketing side, definitely, but look at how you can also change your operations based on some of these growth hacking techniques as well. Fantastic. So that looks like it's all the questions that have been asked. Thank you everyone for coming by today. And as usual, on the way out, please take another minute or so to fill out our exit survey. We're very curious to know what you guys thought of it and some other questions and other webinars or blog posts that we can potentially write on this topic as well. So to find out more about TradeGecko, feel free to start a free trial at tradegecko.com and check out our great articles and blog posts online that are very helpful as well. Thank you, everyone.